28 years later is coming, but it all started with a virus and 2 brutal chapters of survival. Here's everything you need to know from 28 days later and 28 weeks later. Trade a laboratory in Cambridge, which houses abnormally aggressive chimpanzees. One activist frees a chimpanzee despite being warned by a scientist that it is infected with a highly contagious virus. It attacks her, and within seconds of exposure, she succumbs to the virus. She immediately attacks the others. Soon, the virus spreads rapidly across Great Britain, resulting in total societal collapse. 28 days later, bicycle courier Jim, who had a traffic accident and fell into a coma before the outbreak, awakens in St. Thomas Hospital in London to find it deserted. Leaving the hospital, Jim wanders the empty streets of London, discovers newspapers headlining a mass evacuation, and eventually enters a church which contains the aftermath of a massacre. Infected humans appear and chase after Jim, but he is rescued by survivors Selena and Mark, who take him to their refuge in a street-side shop. At Jim's request, the group travels on foot to his parents' house in Deptford, where he learns that they committed suicide. When dusk settles in, the group decides to stay the night. Jim lights a candle, which attracts the infected as they break into the house. Mark is wounded while fending them off. Before the infection can take hold, Selena immediately kills him and tells Jim she is prepared to kill him in a heartbeat. Spotting a makeshift signal from afar, Jim and Selena make their way up Balfron Tower. They encounter cab driver Frank and his young daughter Hannah in one of the flats. Frank plays them a military radio broadcast offering protection and salvation from infection at a blockade outside Manchester. Frank plans to take Hannah to the blockade, and the 4 agree to travel together. The group reaches Manchester and finds the blockade deserted. Frank, frustrated, kicks a tall gate on which a dead body is balanced. A drop of blood from the corpse falls into Frank's eye, infecting him. As he warns the others, hidden soldiers appear and shoot him dead. The soldiers bring Jim, Selena, and Hannah to a heavily fortified mansion under the command of Major Henry West and treat their guests to a tour and banquet. However, the sanctuary turns out to be a ruse. West reveals to Jim that his broadcast was intended to lure female survivors into sexual slavery. Jim and Sergeant Farrell refuse to go along with this scheme, so West orders them to be shot. 2 soldiers shoot Farrell and then argue, allowing Jim to escape. Jim sees a jet contrail in the sky, showing proof that the outside world is still active. After luring West away from the mansion with a siren and killing a soldier, he returns and frees Private Mailer, an infected soldier kept chained up for observation, to infect and kill the remaining soldiers. 1. Corporal Mitchell attempts to abduct Selena, but Jim kills him with such ferocity that Selena momentarily fears Jim must be infected. Before kissing him, relieved, Jim, Selena, and Hannah attempt to escape in Frank's cab. But West, who is hidden in the back seat, shoots Jim in the stomach. Hannah retaliates by putting the cab in reverse, allowing Mailer to pull West through the rear window and kill him, and drives off. Another 28 days later, Jim recovers at a remote cottage in Cumbria, where the infected are shown lying on the roads, dying of starvation. As a Hawker Hunter jet flies overhead, Jim, Selena, and Hannah unfurl a huge cloth banner spelling the word hello. The 3 survivors wave at the jet and wonder among themselves if the pilot had spotted them. 8 years later picks up a world still haunted by rage. Here's a quick recap of 28 weeks later. During the initial outbreak of the rage virus, Donald Don Harris, his wife Alice, and 4 more survivors hide in a cottage on the outskirts of London. They hear a terrified boy pounding at their door and let him in. Minutes later, infected people who have followed the boy break in. Don pleads with Alice to leave the boy, but she refuses, so he escapes on a boat alone, leaving the others to die. After the infected die of starvation, NATO forces take control of Great Britain and begin rebuilding. 28 weeks after the outbreak, the US military, under the command of Brigadier General Stone, brings in settlers and refugees. Among the new arrivals are Don and Alice's children, Tammy and Andy, who were out of the country during the outbreak. They are admitted to District 1, a heavily guarded safe zone on the Isle of Dogs, where they are reunited with their father, who lies about the circumstances of their mother's presumed death. Sergeant Doyle, a Delta Force sniper, is among the soldiers guarding District 1. Tammy and Andy sneak out of the safe zone and return to their former home, hoping to recover a photograph of Alice among other belongings. Inside, they discover Alice alive in a delirious state, just as soldiers alerted by Doyle reach them and return them to District 1. Alice is quarantined and tested by Scarlett, US Army medical officer, and found to be an asymptomatic carrier of the rage virus. Don makes an unauthorized visit to Alice, begging her to forgive him. After kissing Alice, Don gets immediately infected by her saliva and brutally kills her before going on a rampage. Scarlett rescues Tammy and Andy from an isolation room, theorizing that they might have inherited a genetic immunity to the virus that could lead to a cure. Dawn has instigated a domino effect of rapid infections, killing numerous refugees and military personnel. Unable to contain the chaos, Stone orders everyone to be shot indiscriminately. Doyle refuses to comply and leaves his post to assist a small group of fleeing survivors. A panicked Delta Force sniper kills 2 of the group, but Doyle returns fire and kills him, leaving himself, Scarlett, Tammy, Andy, and another survivor, Sam. The group reaches the edge of District 1 as the Air Force firebombs the whole zone. Don survives and follows them into abandoned London. Doyle's colleague Flynn flies his helicopter to Regent's Park to rescue Doyle, but tells him to abandon the others. As a crowd of infected people discovers the 5 escapees, a desperate Sam latches onto the flying helicopter, but is infected when Flynn uses his rotor blades to kill the crowd. Flynn instructs Doyle to meet at Wembley Stadium alone, but Doyle keeps the trio with him. They break into an abandoned Volvo V70 to escape nerve gas that has been released to kill the infected, but are unable to start the car. As soldiers with flamethrowers draw near, Doyle exits the car to push start it and is burned alive. Scarlett and the children take shelter from aerial gunfire in the London Underground, navigating the darkness with a night vision rifle scope. Don ambushes them, killing Scarlett and biting Andy. Tammy is forced to kill Don. Andy becomes an asymptomatic carrier like Alice. Vowing to stick together, Tammy and Andy reach Flynn at Wembley Stadium, who reluctantly flies them to France. 28 days later, a French voice requesting help is heard through the radio in Flynn's abandoned helicopter. A group of infected people emerges from a Paris metro station near the foot of the Eiffel Tower, revealing that the virus has spread to mainland Europe. The rage virus wasn't stopped at spread. 28 years later will show us what happens when the rage virus becomes global. Now you're caught up, so hit like, drop a comments and subscribe for more killer recaps and horror breakdowns.